Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, surrounded by rolling hills and blooming meadows, there lived a gentle young woman named Cinderella. She resided in a charming little cottage with her warm-hearted stepmother and two cheerful stepsisters. The three of them shared a close bond, a loving family who laughed together, helped one another, and enjoyed the simple pleasures of life. Each of them had their own duties around the home, and Cinderella's special task was to care for the enchanting garden that wrapped around their cottage like a colorful embrace. Cinderella adored tending to the plants and flowers. She would often chat softly with them as if they could understand her, and sometimes she even sang to them. Her sweet melodies floated through the open windows of the cottage, filling the air with warmth and happiness, making her family smile whenever they heard her voice. Among all the flowers and greenery, pumpkins were Cinderella's favorite. She always felt there was something truly magical about them. Perhaps it was how quickly they grew or the way their rich shades of orange glowed like tiny suns beneath the light of day. She couldn't explain it, but deep down in her heart, she simply knew they were special. One bright morning, as the golden rays of the sun kissed the petals of her lavender plants, Cinderella was busy gathering the fragrant blooms to make little scented pouches. Just then, the postman strolled up the garden path. He stopped to admire the stunning flowers and lush herbs that grew abundantly everywhere. Cinderella greeted him with her usual kindness, thanking him for his compliments and asking how his family had been. The postman's face lit up with joy, and his eyes sparkled as he shared the news. "Everyone's in wonderful spirits today," he said excitedly. "Word from the castle has reached us all." "The castle?" Cinderella asked curiously. "What sort of news?" The postman smiled and handed her a cream-colored envelope edged in shimmering gold. "Open this, and you'll see for yourself," he said with a wink. To her surprise, the envelope was addressed to Cinderella and her family. She tilted her head in wonder, then called out through the open window, asking her stepmother and stepsisters to come join her in the garden. When they arrived, equally intrigued, Cinderella carefully broke the seal and drew out a golden, embossed card. Their eyes widened. It was an invitation to a royal ball to be held at the castle that very evening. For a moment, they stood in stunned silence before their faces broke into wide, joyful grins. The postman chuckled at their excitement, explaining that everyone in the village had received an invitation and was busily preparing for the grand event. "Oh, how wonderful!" exclaimed Cinderella's stepmother. "But what shall I wear? It's been so long since I attended a ball, and I've nothing fine enough." Her daughters exchanged worried glances, fretting about their dresses and shoes, especially the shoes, for surely there would be dancing. Cinderella laughed softly and reassured them. "Don't worry. I'll help you find the perfect things to wear. I'm sure we can make something lovely from what we already have." The postman bid them a cheerful goodbye, promising to see them that evening, and whistled a merry tune as he went on his way. The little cottage was soon buzzing with excitement as the family chattered about the ball, the music, the dancing, and the chance to visit the grand castle. But suddenly, Cinderella's stepmother let out a loud, unexpected "Achoo!" "Oh, pardon me," she said with a sniff, reaching into her pocket for a handkerchief. "Achoo!" sneezed one stepsister. "Achoo!" echoed the other. "Excuse us," they said in unison, dabbing at their noses. Cinderella looked at them with concern. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked gently. They quickly waved her off, insisting, "Oh no, we're perfectly fine. Just a few surprise sneezes. That's all." Cinderella wasn't entirely convinced, but she decided not to worry. Instead, she focused on helping her family prepare. She mended little tears in their dresses, added extra ribbons and bows, and found forgotten pairs of shoes hidden deep in the wardrobes. With a sprinkle of sparkling sequins, she turned those shoes into glittering dancing slippers, fit for the royal ballroom. But just as Cinderella began searching for the perfect jewels to complete their outfits, her stepmother and stepsisters suddenly burst into another round of unstoppable sneezes, one after another, echoing through the cozy cottage. They kept insisting that they were perfectly fine, but this time Cinderella wasn't convinced. With a gentle yet firm voice, she said, "No, you're not well. What you need is rest. Get into your pajamas and tucked into your beds right away." Her stepmother gave a weak smile and admitted, "Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit tired and under the weather. Perhaps you're right, dear. A little rest might help." Her stepsisters nodded in agreement, rubbing their sleepy eyes. "We're feeling quite drowsy too," they murmured. Still, they looked disappointed. "It's such a shame we'll have to miss the ball," said one of them. "You must go, Cinderella. Go and have a wonderful evening for all of us." But Cinderella shook her head, her kind eyes full of love. "Absolutely not," she said softly. "The ball wouldn't be any fun without you three. How could I possibly dance knowing you're unwell? I'd much rather stay here and take care of my favorite people. And if I feel like dancing tonight," she giggled, "I'll just twirl around the kitchen table." Her family smiled warmly, touched by her selflessness. "Thank you, dear," her stepmother said. "But if you change your mind, we'll understand completely." "I won't," Cinderella replied with a gentle smile. "Now off to bed, all of you. I'll make some soup and bring it up to you." The three thanked her once more and made their way upstairs, their sneezes mixing with sleepy yawns as they went. Down in the kitchen, Cinderella wasted no time. She chopped fresh vegetables, added noodles, and simmered everything into a warm, fragrant vegetable soup. When it was ready, she poured the soup into 3 bowls, placed them neatly on a tray, and carried it upstairs. Her family gratefully ate the delicious meal, handed back the empty bowls, and within minutes, they had drifted off into a peaceful, deep sleep. While her family rested, Cinderella quietly tidied the house, finishing the chores that had been left undone in all the excitement about the ball. Every now and then, she paused to listen carefully, making sure no one needed her, but the cottage remained still, and her family slept soundly through the evening and well into the night. The next morning, Cinderella awoke to the delightful smell of freshly baked bread wafting through the air. From downstairs came the sound of laughter and cheerful singing, her stepmother and stepsisters. She smiled, her heart filling with relief and happiness. It seemed that a long rest had done them all the good in the world. A moment later, her bedroom door creaked open, and in came her family, beaming with joy. Between them, they carried a tray of breakfast, a small vase of freshly picked flowers, and the book Cinderella had been reading in the garden the day before. "We're feeling so much better," they said brightly. "All thanks to you, Cinderella, for taking care of us, and for finishing all the chores on top of that. Now it's your turn to rest. Stay in bed and let us look after you for a change." Cinderella giggled softly, sinking back into her soft, cozy bed. "Thank you," she said. "That sounds lovely. I'll gladly take you up on that offer." Her family placed the tray on her lap, filling the room with the scent of warm bread and wildflowers. After making sure she had everything she needed, they tiptoed downstairs, smiling among themselves. Outside, they gathered around the garden picnic table, the morning sun glinting through the leaves. They began to talk about how much Cinderella always did for them, her kindness, her patience, and how she never put herself first. Her stepmother sighed fondly. "We really should do something special for her, something she remember forever." The three thought in silence for a few moments, until one of the stepsisters suddenly brightened. "I've got it," she exclaimed. "Since Cinderella missed the royal ball last night, why don't we host a ball right here? A surprise ball just for her. We can invite everyone from the village, and even the people from the castle on the hill." The others gasped in delight at the idea. "That's perfect." They agreed, but then the second stepsister frowned slightly. "But wait, our little cottage isn't nearly big enough for a grand celebration like that." They all paused, thinking hard, until after a few moments, the other stepsister's eyes lit up as another idea began to form. "If only we knew someone who could perform real magic," one of the stepsisters sighed dreamily. "Then we could ask them to turn our cozy little cottage into a grand castle, just for one night." Her stepmother gasped suddenly, her eyes lighting up as a memory surfaced. "Wait, there are magical beings who live deep in the forests beyond the mountains. I've heard stories about them. They say that if you truly need their help, you just have to call out and one will appear." The stepsisters leaned forward eagerly. "What kind of magical beings?" they asked in unison. "They're called fairy godmothers," replied their mother with excitement. "Shall I try calling for one?" Both daughters nodded enthusiastically. The stepmother took a deep breath, straightened her dress, and said clearly, "Hello, I would very much like to speak to a fairy godmother. Please." She crossed her fingers and smiled hopefully. Her daughters quickly did the same. For a moment, there was silence. Then suddenly, a brilliant flash of silver light filled the air. When it faded, a Rosichi woman stood before them, dressed in a long flowing green gown. She held a slender wand tipped with an emerald star that shimmered like sunlight through leaves. Her kind eyes sparkled with the same gentle green glow as the gem on her wand. "Hello, my dears," she said warmly, her voice musical and kind. "I'm a fairy godmother. Did someone call for me?" Cinderella's stepmother stammered slightly, still in awe. "Oh, yes, we did. We were hoping you might be able to help us, if you have the time." The fairy godmother smiled. "I have all the time in the world, my dear. What is it that you need?" The stepmother began to explain, telling her all about Cinderella's kindness, how she cared for their family and even helped many people in the village. Then she spoke about the royal ball and how Cinderella had missed it because she had stayed behind to look after them. The fairy godmother listened patiently, nodding with understanding. When the stepmother finished by saying they wished to hold a surprise ball for Cinderella, inviting everyone from the village and even the castle, The fairy godmother's eyes sparkled brighter than before. "What a lovely idea," she said. "That won't be difficult at all. In fact, it will take just a little magic." "Really?" the family gasped in delight. "Oh yes," she said with a cheerful laugh, "and I can start right away. But if you don't mind me asking me, I used those pumpkins growing at the far edge of your garden. I can sense a faint magical aura coming from them. I suspect they hold a bit of enchantment already." Her words made the family smile with surprise. They eagerly told her how Cinderella had always believed those pumpkins were magical somehow. The fairy godmother chuckled softly. "Well, she was right," she said with a knowing wink. "There is magic in them." Then she asked, "Where is Cinderella now?" "She's resting inside," replied the stepmother. "In that case," said the fairy godmother, "perhaps you could take her somewhere for a little while, maybe, for a walk or a picnic, so I can work my magic here without spoiling the surprise." "Of course," said the stepmother at once. "Cinderella loves picnics. We'll take her to the forest." The fairy godmother nodded approvingly and, with a shimmer of light, disappeared from sight. The family hurried to prepare a delicious picnic basket and then called up to Cinderella, telling her they had a surprise outing planned. She was delighted and quickly joined them, humming cheerfully as they set off into the forest together. The moment they were out of sight, the fairy godmother reappeared before the cottage. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and began to imagine a magnificent castle in her mind, its tall towers gleaming, its windows sparkling, its gardens blooming with roses and fountains. The image grew vivid and bright in her thoughts. Opening her eyes, she smiled softly and lifted her wand. With one graceful sweep through the air, silver sparks spiraled from the tip, floating toward the cottage like drifting stars. The thatched straw roof began to shimmer, changing into glittering golden tiles that caught the sunlight beautifully. The wooden walls expanded outward, stretching and reshaping into strong stone walls, while tall, elegant windows appeared, glowing like crystal as the transformation continued. Surrounded by delicate stone carvings and intricate details, the transformation continued to unfold like a living dream. The humble wooden door of the cottage shimmered, stretching and reshaping until it became a grand double doorway of polished mahogany, its surface gleaming as if kissed by sunlight. From each corner of the growing castle, turrets and towers spiraled upward, reaching for the sky and giving the structure a majestic, awe-inspiring silhouette. The air shimmered as the magic spread outward, and the simple garden that once surrounded the cottage began to transform as well. The rough patches of soil softened into lush green lawns, their grass neatly trimmed and smooth as silk. Elegant water fountains appeared one after another, sending graceful arcs of crystal-clear water into the air. Curved cobblestone pathways wound through the grounds like rivers of stone guiding the way, between blooming flower beds that now overflowed with roses in every imaginable shade, from deep scarlet to snow white, from soft pinks to bright golden yellows. Neatly shaped hedges grew in perfect rows, each one sparkling with tiny twinkling fairy lights that flickered gently, as though greeting the stars soon to appear in the evening sky. The fairy godmother stepped back for a moment, admiring her work, before her eyes landed on the familiar patch of orange pumpkins at the far edge of the garden. She smiled, choosing not to alter them, at least not Yet, she could still sense a deep, glowing magic pulsing from within them. She approached softly and whispered, "All right, my lovely pumpkins, show me what you can do." At once, the pumpkins began to glow, surrounded by swirls of silver stardust. The air around them shimmered as they began to shift and stretch, changing shape before her eyes. Their curved orange shells unfolded like flower petals until they had transformed into a fleet of stunning orange carriages, each one gleaming with silver trim and elegant wheels that sparkled like moonlight. The fairy godmother clasped her hands in delight. "Beautiful," she said with a bright smile. "Simply perfect for our guests." She nodded to the magical carriages in gratitude before lifting her wand again. With a soft whoosh of silver air, dozens upon dozens of golden invitations appeared, floating gracefully before her. Each card glimmered with embossed letters and fine filigree edges. "Go now," she said kindly, "and find all of Cinderella's friends and neighbors. Invite them to the grand celebration tonight." The invitations fluttered their corners like wings and took off into the sky, shimmering as they soared toward every home in the village and even toward the grand castle on the distant hill. The fairy godmother then turned to the waiting carriages. "Now," she said, "each of you should follow one of those invitations, collect the guests, and bring them safely to the new castle." But the pumpkin carriages remained perfectly still. The fairy godmother chuckled softly. "Ah, of course," she said with a twinkle in her eye. "You've no one to drive you yet. Let's fix that, shall we?" She knew she would also need extra help for the ball people to serve food, play music, and fill the evening with song and joy. So she called out to the little creatures of the garden. "My friends," she said kindly, "would any of you like to help me with the surprise ball for Cinderella?" From behind the hedges, beneath the trees, and among the flower beds came the gentle rustling of movement. Mice, rabbits, hedgehogs, and birds peeked out one by one, their eyes shining with excitement. "We'd love to help," they chirped, squeaked, and chattered eagerly. The fairy godmother smiled warmly. "Wonderful, but only if you're sure," she said, and when they nodded, she lifted her wand high. With a graceful swirl of green and silver light, she transformed the helpful animals into the perfect, magical staff. For the evening, the tiny mice became elegant coach drivers, dressed in smart uniforms complete with shining buttons and neatly tilted hats. They scampered to the pumpkin carriages, climbed up onto the seats, and took hold of the silver reins. One by one, the carriages began to roll away, each following the shimmering path of an invitation gliding through the sky. The rabbits were next. They turned into graceful waiters, wearing crisp white shirts, neat black waistcoats, and tiny bow ties that made them look wonderfully refined. The hedgehogs transformed into a talented orchestra, dressed in polished tailcoats, holding gleaming instruments, violins, cellos, trumpets, and flutes that sparkled like stars. Lastly, the birds became charming singers, each with a golden songbook tucked neatly under their wings, ready to fill the ballroom with music as sweet as morning light. The fairy godmother led her team of newly transformed helpers through the towering mahogany doors and into the castle's magnificent ballroom. Inside, silver curtains draped across tall windows and glittering crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like clusters of frozen starlight. The walls were covered in soft cream wallpaper, giving the room a warm, elegant glow. Along one side stood long rows of tables and chairs, each polished to perfection. Upon the tables were laid out platters of delicious food, from dainty cucumber sandwiches to golden pastries and sugared fruits, waiting to be enjoyed at Cinderella's surprise celebration.
The long table shimmered with delicious treats, golden apple pies, rich chocolate cakes, and pastries that filled the air with sweetness. On the other side of the room, a grand dance floor gleamed under the chandeliers, waiting for music and laughter to fill it. The animals who had been transformed into helpers stood ready at their posts, each one excited for the celebration to begin. The fairy godmother slowly turned in a graceful circle, admiring her work. Every detail sparkled, every corner looked perfect. All that was missing now were the guests. And, of course, Cinderella herself. While the magic had been unfolding back at the cottage, Cinderella was sitting beneath a shady tree, enjoying a lovely picnic with her family. The sun shone gently through the leaves as laughter and chatter filled the air. Just as they were finishing their meal, a soft breeze stirred, carrying with it something shimmering. A glittering golden envelope fluttered down from the sky and landed softly in Cinderella's lap. She blinked in surprise and picked it up, tracing her finger along its sparkling edges. "How strange," she said curiously, unfolding the invitation. "It says, 'We re-invited to a ball,' but it is being held at our cottage." Her stepsisters giggled, and her stepmother smiled warmly before revealing the secret. They told her how they had called upon a fairy godmother to arrange a very special surprise, a ball to celebrate her. "For me?" Cinderella gasped, eyes wide with disbelief. Her family nodded, explaining it was to thank her for everything she had done, not just for them, but for everyone in the village. Tears of joy glimmered in Cinderella's eyes, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Before she could say another word, a soft rumbling sound made them all look up. A gleaming pumpkin-shaped carriage was rolling toward them, its silver wheels sparkling in the sunlight. To their astonishment, a tiny, well-dressed mouse sat proudly in the driver's seat, smiling up at them. "Good afternoon," squeaked the mouse politely. "Your carriage awaits. Please climb in. I'll take you home." The family quickly packed away the picnic, still laughing in disbelief. As they climbed into the glowing pumpkin carriage, Cinderella gently ran her hand along its smooth inner walls. "Could this be one of my pumpkins?" she whispered in awe. The mouse gave a cheerful nod and set off. The wheels spun smoothly over the path as the countryside blurred past. But when they arrived, Cinderella's eyes went wide. The familiar little cottage was gone. In its place stood a dazzling castle with tall towers, sparkling windows, and lush gardens stretching in every direction. The carriage rolled to a stop before the grand doors, and the mouse tipped his tiny hat. "The fairy godmother is waiting for you in the ballroom," he said. With hearts pounding, the family stepped inside and gasped. Their cozy home had become a palace of light and wonder. They followed the sound of gentle humming to the ballroom, where the fairy godmother was testing the dance floor, twirling and laughing softly to herself. When she noticed them, she floated gracefully across the room and greeted them with a warm smile. Cinderella stepped forward, eyes shining. Thank you so very much," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is beyond anything I could have ever imagined." The fairy godmother chuckled kindly. "Oh, my dear, it was my pleasure. Though I must confess, your pumpkins deserve some of the credit. They already carried quite a bit of magic inside." Cinderella laughed with delight. "I knew they were special." The fairy godmother then explained how she had sent out dozens of golden invitations, each followed by its own pumpkin carriage to collect guests from across the village. "They'll all be arriving soon," she said with a twinkle in her eye. "But before they do, there's just one more touch needed, if you'll allow me." She raised her wand slightly. "Would you like me to create elegant evening gowns and perhaps a pair of glass slippers or two?" Cinderella and her family exchanged amazed glances and nodded eagerly. "Oh yes, please," they replied in unison, their excitement shining brighter than the chandeliers above.
With a graceful flick of her wand, The fairy godmother sent shimmering ribbons of light swirling around Cinderella and her family. In the blink of an eye, their simple day dresses transformed into magnificent silk gowns, each one more dazzling than the last. The fabric shimmered like moonlight, adorned with delicate jewels that glistened with every movement. On their feet appeared beautiful glass slippers, clear as crystal, yet astonishingly soft and comfortable, as if made from the smoothest velvet. Just then, the first guests began arriving at the castle. One by one, they stepped through the grand doors, their eyes widening in awe at the breathtaking sight before them. Everywhere they looked, there was magic, glowing chandeliers, elegant decor, and the warm hum of enchantment in the air. The fairy godmother greeted each guest with a cheerful smile and encouraged them to relax, enjoy the evening, and make themselves at home. Before long, the ballroom came alive with laughter and conversation. The rabbit waiters hopped gracefully among the guests, balancing silver trays filled with delicious treats and sparkling drinks. The hedgehog orchestra struck up a lively tune, their instruments gleaming under the crystal lights, while the songbirds filled the air with sweet, lilting melodies that danced between the notes of the music. Cinderella and her family mingled among their friends and neighbors, their hearts light and full of joy. They made sure everyone had food, drink, and a smile on their face. Then, as a new song began to play, Cinderella's stepmother took her hand and led her to the dance floor. Soon, the whole family joined in, twirling and laughing as they spun across the polished wooden floor, their reflections glimmering in the golden light. The night was filled with happiness. Music, laughter, and the sound of joy echoed through the grand hall. Cinderella couldn't stop smiling. She felt as though she were living in a dream. Time seemed to melt away until, before anyone realized, the clock began to chime midnight. The music faded, and one by one, the guests began to say their goodbyes. There were hugs, laughter, and heartfelt words of thanks for the unforgettable evening. Each guest stepped into a waiting pumpkin carriage, which rolled gently away into the night, glowing softly under the silver moonlight. Cinderella and her family stepped outside to watch, holding hands as the final chime rang through the cool night air. Before their eyes, the magnificent castle shimmered with light and slowly began to transform. The grand towers and golden rooftops dissolved into sparkles, and in moments, their beloved cozy cottage stood once more, just as it had before, warm, familiar, and full of love. The gardens returned to their humble charm, and the pumpkins reappeared at the edge, looking as ordinary as ever. As the last traces of magic faded, Cinderella looked down to find her splendid gown and slippers gone, replaced by her everyday dress and shoes. She smiled softly, feeling no disappointment, only gratitude. Together, the family went inside, still glowing with happiness from the night's magic. They hugged tightly, exchanging sleepy goodnights, and Cinderella thanked them once more for the most wonderful evening of her life. When she entered her room, she walked over to her wardrobe to take out her night dress. But when she opened the doors, her eyes widened in surprise. There, hanging neatly, was her glittering ball gown, and beside it, the delicate glass slippers, shining faintly in the moonlight. A soft smile touched her lips as she whispered, "Thank you, fairy godmother." Moments later, she nestled into a soft, cozy bed, her heart full and peaceful. As her eyes slowly closed, she drifted off to sleep, dreaming of silver lights, pumpkin carriages, and a night she would remember forever. It's time to rest now, my little dreamer. Take a deep, gentle breath in and slowly let it out. With every breath, let the day fade away. Feel your body grow heavier, softer, and more relaxed. Let your arms and legs go completely floppy, and let yourself sink deeper and deeper into your cozy bed. With each breath, you're drifting further into calm, peaceful sleep. Whisper a quiet asterisk, good night asterisk to the day, knowing that tomorrow will be bright and full of new adventures. Tomorrow will be a good day because your heart is big and kind. You are a wonderful friend. You believe in yourself, and you know that being asterisk, you asterisk, is the best thing in the world to be. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to ask for help when you need it. You can do amazing things when you set your mind to them. Be proud of what makes you different. Be proud of everything you've done. Be proud of asterisk. You dot asterisk. You're a great learner, a kind listener, and a shining example to others. You are important. You are special. You are deeply loved. Now let the sleepiness take over. Your eyes are heavy, your breathing is soft, and you're ready to drift away. Let your dreams begin to blossom and carry you to wonderful, faraway lands filled with magic and light. In your dreams, there's no space for worries, only calm, joy, and endless imagination. Anything can happen there. Anything you wish for can come true. Picture a golden light glowing softly at the tips of your toes. Watch it slowly travel upward, filling your legs, your chest, your arms, all the way to the top of your head. Everywhere that warm golden light touches, it fills you with peace, happiness, and positivity. You're surrounded now by a gentle, glowing warmth tucked safely under your soft, toasty blanket. Doesn't that feel lovely? You are safe. You are loved. You are cozy and calm. So rest easy and sleep soundly through the night. Sweet dreams, little one. Let the stars watch over you and the moonlight guide your dreams. Sleep deeply, rest peacefully, and I'll see you again when morning comes.